Hello, Moses. You're able to hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, Moses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm also able to
participants
hear you.
can, yeah, David. So the participants can also hear us. You started broadcast.
Right, right. Okay. So I'll just keep it on the PPT. Just confirm whether you're able to see my screen just now.
Sure. I can see a screen.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just toggle one or two slides. Just reconfirm. Moving. So Moses, you can begin. Just before three somewhere.
Sure.
Participant.
Right. A question to all the attendees. Can you hear us? You guys can type. I would request everyone to put on their headphones and keep the mic on your headphones if there is one on mute. We will be taking all the questions in the chat throughout the webinar. So you can type in your questions and you can just tell your answers. Great. Tarun, thanks. So we'll just wait a few more minutes before we begin. We have about 5 minutes. So we'll just have all the other attendees join in and then we'll begin right at 3. Uh, a quick public service announcement. Kindly use your headphones and keep the mic on the headphone on mute. We will be taking all the questions in the chat and all the questions will be answered throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions or any queries, you can put them in the chat option and we'll be taking them up. All right. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Moses Call from QGlue, your co-host for the webinar. Just a quick introduction about QGlue. QGlue is a design and innovation venture promoted by QAI. Using human-centered approach with robust methodology, QGlue equips people to solve wicked problems by helping them reach a solution that is not just right, but also desirable, with design at the heart of it all. And we aim to evangelize design and innovation that makes the world better designed and people happier. QAI was founded in 1980 in USA. QAI is a transnational consulting company that facilitates quality and process improvement in organizations worldwide. With presence in close to 30 countries and 700 successful client journeys, QA has developed evangelized process improvement, operational excellence, and quality in India, globally, and India as well. So I welcome you all to the webinar on accelerating ideation using innovation by QGlue designer in residence, David P. Isaac. David is an innovation level 2 practitioner certified by International TRIZ Association Matrix. He's also certified as a TRIZ practitioner advanced level certificate issued by the University of Twente, the Netherlands, in affiliation with the TRIZ Training International Center and signed by TRIZ Master Valery Sushkov, co-founder of the European TRIZ Association. David's specialty lies in combining the power of design thinking methodology with TRIZ innovation tools to help achieve better and more specific solutions to real-world wicked problems. And he has helped many organizations transform. Apart from this, David is a consulting partner at QI Global and has over 20 years of extensive experience as a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and Lean expert. He has been instrumental in supporting clients in BFSI, IT, ITES, and BPM all over the world. And he has conducted competency building sessions for design thinking practice and Lean Six Sigma and innovation at many levels. With that, I'll now hand over the session to David so that you may all get started on your design journey. David, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Moses, and good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. And thanks for your time that you have dedicated. In the 1 hour time that we have with us, we will look at specifically two areas of interest. One is an overview on what design thinking is, a bit of certain tools, an overview on certain tools that get used in design thinking, and then looking at where does innovation trees really fit in, or where is the synergy that really exists. And we will look at in specifically the ideation phase of the design thinking approach, and see how do we look at coming up with ideas which are forward facing, future facing, ideas which are ready for the future. And we also look at, are there certain tools, techniques which exist in TRIZ at various levels to be accelerating our ideation element. So these are the two broad areas that we'll be looking at in our webinar. And as Moses just mentioned, you can just type in your questions and we will try and answer as many questions as possible in this session itself. And if you have any further questions, then you can also write up to us, and we will be very happy to address some of your queries even after the webinar is over. Okay, so here we look at just a brief on what QI Global is into. We are actually focusing on creating a lot of operational excellence for our business partners. We focus on some measurable competitive advantage that we want to provide to our clients. And essentially the focus areas is people, process, and performance as we look at. Multiple areas of competencies that QI Global deals with. We have a lot of core capabilities in CMI, agile practices, data analytics, Six Sigma, Lean, and of course the design thinking element that we are really speaking of. Quick facts on QA for many of you would have interacted with QA, and we interact with a lot of clients across the globe. Multiple training sessions, consulting sessions, certifications that we are into for our clients. Anything that adds value and business value and creates an ROI for our clients is an area that we really focus on. And we will also deal with how does design thinking really come inside, and how does the refocus on design per se is going to transform the way that we really develop our processes or look at our processes in a very different manner altogether. So for promoting design thinking and for evangelizing design thinking among our clients, and to really guide in terms of translating how does the approach of design thinking get translated into actual problem solving and ROI, QI Glue has got formed. It's part of QI family, and it's focused on building capability, consulting organizations to really build the design thinking approach and culture within their organization. Multiple organizations with whom QA has already worked with in the past, in terms of training, consulting, in deploying some of the design thinking approaches, multiple engagements that we really have from QA perspective. Yes, so Moses just mentioned about me and some of the background that I possess in terms of operational excellence and terms of design thinking. And let us jump to our subject matter that is of interest to us. Um, so
David, sorry to interrupt.
yes,
Just a quick
yes.
question before you begin. We have a question from Vijender. He's asking, would you be able to share the deck with the participants later, or should we make notes?
No, I think what you can do is you can type in, you can pen in certain notes as you go along. But this webinar session is recorded, and we'll be sharing a link with you, so that you can review this link at will, and maybe share it internally as a link to other folks within your organization who are really interested in design thinking. So a link will be shared with you, right? Any other question, Moses, that we have? Any other?
No, we can
Oh,
proceed.
okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay, great. So if you look at design thinking is not something new per se. What has happened is in the recent years, globally as well as in India, you see a lot of refocus happening towards designing, to creating processes in line with stakeholder needs. In fact, if you look at, there have been a lot of attempts across various sciences to align our processes to meet client needs, stated and unstated, create processes which are elegant, simple, and really translate that into a good customer experience. So the obsession of all of the organizations, I would say, is to and is always been per se to create a lot of value and this customer experiential differentiation with respect to the competitors. What has happened is with the digital thing, accelerating so very fast, with computation abilities increasing tremendously and cost reducing at an exponential rate of the digital technology. A lot of this acceleration of these endeavors has happened, and you will see a lot of this focus has now come in is how do we integrate all of these approaches into something that brings in a lot of customer experiential element. So you'll see some of the surveys that got done here, is 81% of executives are placing customer experience as their top priority. You'll see a lot of organizations, a lot of focus has happened to the top organizations in terms of acquiring a lot of design firms per se, who not only design processes and systems, and they also work towards building the culture of the organization towards design as an element. Okay, so we'll be looking at what is this design thinking. We are speaking about this design quite often, but let us first articulate what really has brought this design into the floodlights, and then really see how it is different. There was a study done, and you will see this on the website also of Design Management Institute, that they have studied organizations which had put effort into inculcating a culture of design thinking within their task force and applied design thinking, vis-a-vis organizations in the S&P 500 who did not follow that particular approach or had different other approaches for building a lot of this alignment to the customer needs and business experience kind of. It was a statistically significant difference. If you look at the difference over the past 10 years is an extraordinary 219% difference between their performance on the index. So they have really outperformed their competitors. You will also see that a lot of focus has happened on integrating and focusing on the customer experience, especially with artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, and other elements coming in, which we felt was science fiction maybe 7 to 8 years back or 10 years back. If you look at, is at the brim of reality, if we may say so. So the what has really happened is we need to equip ourselves with certain techniques, methodologies that will help us to not only look at just applying a certain technology or a platform, but how do we really design this as a deliberate attempt to make processes simpler and elegant. So why do we actually require design thinking? So if you look at, one of the reasons is we require a lot of this innovation coming in. One of the other differentiators of design thinking is it focuses heavily on empathy, on understanding the customer needs, not only the stated needs, but the unstated needs, the psychological needs, in a sense, of what is the customer experiencing, what does the end user experience, what do various stakeholders really expect from us, and really translate that into a string of minute events, structures, and actions that a person and an organization takes to have an integrated element of a value chain as we really understand this. So it focuses on empathy in particular. You will also see that a lot of this focus is there on carrying out a lot of market research, understanding market customer behavioral patterns, not only with the data, but gaining insights from data, as well as actually going and seeing the people trying to solve a particular problem. The next differentiator I would say is it focuses not only on trying to solve a particular problem, but it also focuses on, and it questions the base of, why does a process really exist? Why do we do certain things in its current form? And therefore, it focuses on asking the right questions rather than generating the right solutions. So these are various elements, if you look at, is integrating. But the key differentiator in design thinking is the focus and the obsession with the customer experiential element, in terms of understanding empathy, translating that element and that expectation into a process design, into an offering, into a product, which the customer essentially feels as an extension, or something that was inadvertently required but was not never translated into a business need. So that only can be done through a very high obsession with understanding client requirements. So if you look at here in design thinking, it is not about solving problems, but it is about solving business problems with the design processes. So typically we solve problems, but they are all in isolation. How do we really integrate this into a larger entirety? So a lot of this system thinking element also is part of the design thinking approach. We don't solve problems in isolation. So in our normal approach that we have, in the business thinking approach that we have a set of problems that are defined by strategy or your current tactics of the organization or the immediate burning issues which come in, and here are a set of solutions that are available with us. In design thinking, before we even start defining the problem, a very important aspect is to really lay focus on, do we really understand the context within which the problem really resides in? Is this the problem to be really solving? And second, is it a problem at all in the very first place? There are various examples in design thinking that really articulate. For example, just to quote some examples from an organization who is into life insurance. So their issue that they were trying to really solve is, how do we promote our products on the website, and people buy our products on the website and renew our products on the website. So that was the initial problem. When they deep dived inside to really understand, is this the problem to really solve? And that was a time when they had to go and understand and experience exactly what the customer was experiencing. And they realized that the problem was not that people found it difficult to buy the product on the website, but they found it difficult even to enter on and log in onto the website. So you see, you have a different problem altogether to be really solving it. Another example that immediately comes to mind is, we feel that having bots or chat bots on our websites would immediately address a problem of immediately addressing a customer need and trying to address the need at an immediate level. In many of the sites, if you look at very carefully, and I was really surprised in one of the instances that really happened was I just typed a question and the reply was a surprising that this question is unidentified. Can you please rephrase your question, or can you please articulate the question in a different manner altogether? So you had a programmed element and a database, and if there is something different that really comes in, the bot is not really able to really understand this off. Now, these are elements where we feel that certain technology, certain new developments by incorporating would really solve our problems. Unfortunately, it elongates our problems or makes them complex. Design thinking actually focuses on how to really align this off in the right sense. So, like we mentioned, design thinking is more of integrating these three key elements. One is business, because all our solutions should be value adding onto the business and give an ROI. It should focus on the people element in terms of what do they require, is it aligned to the people needs, and second, is it technologically feasible. So you'll see in all of these areas, an interjection of all of these areas results into an what we know as experience innovation. Any questions at this stage? Just a quick pause and maybe just to look at any questions that we have.
Hi, David. So there's one question from Raghavendra. His
Yes.
question is it thinking out of the box?
Okay. Okay.
I
I
think
would
his
say
question is in context with, is design thinking just thinking out of the box, or is it something else?
no, I would say design thinking is a larger system of approaching our processes or our offerings right up from scratch, in terms of really conceptualizing the offering till the time we actually deliver it. So it's a much wider kind of an entity that we are looking at. When we say thinking out of the box, yes, of course. So thinking out of the box is true in two contexts. One, do we really challenge the way that we are currently doing the work? For example, one of the clients that we interacted with, and I remember in recent time, is somebody who is supporting the instruments that help us swipe the cards, and they need to be managed and maintained and moved up. Now the element is, if we work towards building a process or an customer experience around the machine, um, is that a relevant piece? Because we don't know whether the machine is going to exist in the next 2 to 3 years. So when we are doing design thinking, we are even questioning the existence of certain things or elements as they currently are. So in that sense, it's thinking out of the box. I think the second thinking out of the box element even comes in the ideation phase of design thinking, where we are generating new ideas, and that's an element where thinking out of the box comes in, and that's exactly where really Triz would really fit inside. So there are these two elements that it would really come.
So we
Any
have
other?
one more. Yeah,
Sure.
we have one more question from Priya. The question is there any limitation of design thinking, or can it be applied for any solution?
Oh, it's a good question. If you look at design thinking is not limited to a particular scenario or particular to a particular organization or a type of processes. We can Design thinking can be applied and is being applied at even strategizing as an entrepreneur, integrating it with the strategy, or it can be integrated with marketing for coming up with newer elements of how do we really engage with the customer. It can be used for designing products and services, products that you can feel and touch. Okay, it is even used to really understand the interjection between digital platforms and the human interface. So design thinking per se has very wide applications, though in its initial phase of design thinking was primarily addressing the products which we normally develop in digital format or physical format, like you would look at like a Canon interface, or a printer interface, or a phone, or even a toothbrush for that matter, or some of the articles that we normally use. How do we really come up to that? And over a period of time, it has even moved into strategy element in terms of how do we design not only processes but an end-to-end strategy also.
So we have two more questions. We'll take them up quickly, which is one question from Deepak. Design thinking is an art or science? I mean, that is there a way to become great designer when I'm not a good designer right now? And we have one more question from Arun.
Hmm.
How design thinking helps in enhancing the experience of internal customers or stakeholders since they are much resists on change of any process?
Yeah, so I'll just take one question. Maybe Moses will take the next one a little later because you have some slides coming up there.
Sure.
So, is design thinking an art and a science? I would say design thinking is both an art and a science. If you look at it very carefully, we always have been designers by birth. That there is no need of us to get very averse that here is some steps by which I will become a designer or a design thinker. Of course, we have certain skills with us. The element is in design thinking. If you look at it very carefully, it's a very scientific approach. So there are some elements which have come very natural to us in terms of sketching or visualization or creativity. But the if you look at the core of how design thinking emerged in its initial form, it was done through research. We tried to really ask the question: is the human thinking something of an art? Is it something of, or is human logic something of an art? Is that something which is god given? Is human decision making itself something that is so very haphazard, or which cannot be really understood like algorithms? So what they really discovered was that for every human action, including human thinking and art and creativity, there are certain patterns which we follow. And those are the exact research on which our design thinking approach has evolved over a period of time. So essentially what it means is it's an art to an extent where human creativity and thinking and imagination is inbuilt, but there is a lot of element of algorithms and approaches and structured approach. When we follow, we are fairly able to increase our ability to design systems in a very elegant manner. So in that sense, it's both an art and a design. But in short, it does have algorithms and approaches which are hidden behind, which actually articulate it to become like a science. Right. So we'll just move ahead to the next slides, and hopefully we'll see some of the slides that we will talk about on design thinking, and see the steps also, and we'll be able to interject better. So if you look at how does really design thinking work, so here is a framework in terms of how does it really operate. So, and of course there are various variants of an approach on design thinking. Broadly, if you look at this model, it has four phases: the discover, define, develop, and deliver. So you'll see in the discover phase, we start off with some problem area. Remember, at every stage we are questioning the existence of the problem or the definition of the problem as we really understand. And that even continues to the stage where even when we develop the ideas, just before we start developing the ideas. So a very high critique is being done onto the problem statement. But you will see in the discover phase, we start off with one problem area or an area of focus that we really want to address, and start off by doing a lot of this empathy in terms of understanding, doing surveys, you viewing users as they use the product or services. What are they trying to really achieve? What is the problem that they are trying to really solve? And articulate that into certain insights, and you'll see certain tools that are getting used. And once you develop these insights and certain insights that you get, you try and reformulate your HMW, that is called as the how might we kind of a statement, which is definition of a problem area. And you define the problem area, and that itself is the define phase. And the third phase is having defined the problem as a how might we kind of an objective statement. We come into the ideation phase where we start developing our ideas and creating a lot of multiple options that are available, and create a to be journey map or a process that the customer would really want to move through, and then ultimately come in into creating some prototypes and solutions that we would want to take back to the end users and stakeholders and experiment with it. So the whole essence of design thinking is, if we have to fail, we fail fast. So we develop things, test it out quickly, go back to the drawing board, again look at elements of learning and iterate till the time we really have a solution that really is elegant and able to meet the need. So broadly, these are the 4 steps of design thinking as we articulate. In the subsequent slides, we will look at certain tools that are getting used in design thinking here. So really, how do we do design thinking, and what are the various approaches in design thinking which makes it very unique? If you look at, there are a lot of elements and verbiage that get used and approaches that get used. One is what they call as the front stage and the backstage, essentially the touch points where our stakeholders and clients really interact with us. The front, like our front end. If we go to the bank, the person right up facing us is a front stage. But remember, just behind there is a back end processes which may not be visible to the customer. Similarly, people interacting on the web page is a front stage that really comes in. And in the front stage, we don't have people, we have technology and interfaces operating. But behind them, there are elements of processes and people and technology and artificial intelligence, which is supporting this front end to operate. So you have the backstage also along with it. There are very important tool that gets used in design thinking is what is called as a service blueprint, that talks about this end-to-end process, not only as a swim lane diagram or a step-by-step kind of a process as we normally interject, but trying to really decipher who are the customers, what are they really trying to do with that, who are the touch points at that very moment, are there any backstage processes which are trying to really address it, is there technology elements which need to be correlated, because this entire piece of customer experience is more like a ballet. It has to be coordinated between multiple stakeholders multiple times, and that is what we know in service industry as our moment of truth. So essentially, that moment of truth is what is really going to build in. And you see a lot of these touch points and channels which get used as concepts in design thinking. Here is a slide just to show you, the customer journey mapping, or what we know as the customer experience mapping. If you look at here, we see various strings here in terms of what customer really wants to do. When I say customer, it's a very broad kind of an application. Stakeholders, internal people, external stakeholders, they are trying to really try and solve a problem at every stage per se as a need. And then how do we really build steps at the front end and at the back, at the front stage and the backstage, to really coordinate with each other with the multiple steps. So you see there's a lot of this tool that gets used, known as the customer journey mapping, that we really do. And how do we really frame the statement? So one very unique and elegant way in which design thinkers really frame it is using the how might we. So here's an example here. So you say how might we, and essentially you state what problem needs to be solved for whom. So we are talking about who is the stakeholder for whom we are trying to solve it. An example right here is, how might we provide a personalized experience for a senior retail store consumer? So you'll see this becomes a very focused interjection. So remember that this how might we statement in the design thinking approach gets refined at every stage per se. So you may start off with a initial how might we statement, and as you get insights, you may realize that this is not the problem to solve. I need to solve something else. Or maybe my stakeholder is not the same stakeholder. I need to focus on some other stakeholder to solve another problem per se. And then you can move ahead. So for example, one of the elements was in a telecom space. So one of the problems that we are trying to really solve is how do we prevent churn or movement of customers from a postpaid to a prepaid. A high end, high revenue customer earning, they move to a prepaid, which is a flexible, low revenue for an organization. This churn movement, how do we really prevent? When people started rephrasing and understanding the stakeholder, they really realized that maybe this is not the problem to solve. Maybe the problem is, how do we engage with our postpaid customers in a better manner when they are with us, rather than trying to prevent something happening. So that becomes a stronger problem to solve. And so this becomes a very elegant way of defining the problem statements. And at this stage we come to the ideation phase, is where we start generating ideas, and here exactly where TRIZ really fits in. So the slides that we really spoke of the sometime now is all related to do with design thinking approach, certain tools and techniques which differentiate it from our known approaches of trying to solve problems and enhance customer experience. And the next part that we will deal with is the ideation phase in design thinking, and where does really TRIS fit inside. So a quick check here. Any questions that you would have, so that we are all together.
So we'll take one question, which is basically saying that is agile methodology closer to design thinking?
Agile methodology, if you look at, um, is close. Of course, it is close to design thinking. And if you look at it in detail, various approaches like Six Sigma, Lean, Agile, and of course, Agile, I would say, is a incarnation of the Lean approach to building a lot of these flexibility and coherence within an IT or project management kind of a framework. So not only in IT, but software development, but in more so to do with the project management framework. So Agile does really focus on, so when I talk about Agile, I'm also speaking about Agile and Lean together as an interjection. Lean and Agile really focus on how to make the value flow within the process. Like in Agile, how do we translate the needs of the stakeholder and understand the needs of a certain functionality to be inbuilt, and translate this off into our development process right end to end in a faster manner, in a seamless manner across multiple teams. Now, for that, we are looking at building teams which are smaller teams, coherent teams, co-located teams, and trying to really articulate and increase the speed. In Lean, this is called as reducing the lead time and ensuring that the process flow is in direct fit or running in coherence with the demand, which in Lean is called as a tuck time. So essentially, the pull that generates into the process gets translated into the speed of the process in terms of how do we really match it. And the whole ethos being that if there is a need for something to happen, maybe a project development or a deployment to happen, then we as a team will go at a certain pace and develop processes which can be operated at differentiated pace that will run in synchronization with the pull. Okay, but we never question at any stage the requirement that actually comes in from the stakeholder. Okay, the focus is on moving this process faster. In design thinking, we are going, at least I would not say one step still further, I would say 2-3 steps still interior, to really question if there is a certain feature to be developed, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Is this the solution to the problem? Is there are there other elegant ways of solving this? So we are actually questioning the need and the problem that people are trying to solve even before they come with the requirement. Okay, and after the requirement comes in, rather than getting focused only on steps as a process, because in Lean we also look at modifying the process in speed. So in agile, the whole element is, how do we have it with the burn down chart, and with the velocity, how do we really have our processes aligned with it. In lean, in design thinking, the element is, if I can redesign this entire offering in a very differentiated manner, how do we really do this so that the value enhancement is much faster, speed is much lower. So in a sense, both are trying to attain the same objectives, but they are going from different directions altogether. Right? Any other questions, Moses?
We can carry forward right now. I think we'll take questions as we go along.
Okay, okay. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So now we come to the important phase of ideation, because here you would have defined your problem statement, and here is a stage where you are trying to generate new ideas. And essentially in design thinking, we use a lot of the tools, like role playing. People come in and try and role play and interject and really live the particular scenario that a stakeholder or a customer is really ongoing. Or we storyboarded using small videos or pictures, and then trying to articulate and then come up with newer ideas. Or we brainstorm, or creative pause, co-creation workshops, and multiple other modes that get used to generate ideas. Now, what we see here is, we are using a lot of these tools, which are which get a lot of people to join in terms of the solutioning. But this actually has one inherent problem hidden within it. Is, as you get more number of people, and that's what we really do when we try and solve problems, is we get more and more ideas, and we get people to think in multiple different directions. The problem is that for us to come to a successful solution, or for us to even interject and identify those 3 4 key solutions for us to prototype in our design phase, there are a lot of iterations that we would have to really do to come to the solution. And even then, we are not very sure whether the solution is the ideal solution, an innovative solution, or whether the solution would be really out of the box. So there are two challenges that we have with these approaches. One is, it is time consuming, because you get so many ideas, and then you would have multi voting and then come to 2 3 solutions. And we really don't know. And the second element is, how do we really know that the solutions are innovative? Did we create the skill of innovation within us? So to look at this, as Einstein mentioned a long time back, was the problems that exist in the world today cannot be solved at the level of thinking that created them. So when we are ideating, we will have to go to the new level of thinking, at the level at which we really understood the problem, because we cannot solve the problem at this new level of understanding. Either we understand it from an empathy perspective and a psychological perspective, and therefore redesign the entire piece up in a very elegant manner, but that also goes to a new level. If we have a problem statement, then to get a solution, the solutions that we normally use, our competitors are using, or what others are using, are not sufficient. They will not really solve your problem or make you innovative. So therefore, we'll have to go to the new level of thinking. And here is exactly where TRIZ ideation comes inside picture, because it starts talking about, how do we start becoming an innovator? Can we create ideas which are out of the box? So now you have amalgamated the power of design thinking and the power of TRIZ in the ideation phase of design thinking, to understand and come to the problem statement and define solutions which are out of the box. So here is an approach which looks at how to create it. TRIZ, essentially, if we translate it, it's a Russian word acronym, and if we translate it, it means theory of solving inventive problems. How do we really solve problems? And as we mentioned some time back, is creativity art? Is it a God-given gift? There are a lot of this research that was done by a person called as Genrich Altschuler in way back and in Russia, and he really started articulating various patents that were being filed. And of course, patents are something that is very creative or innovative and something out of the box. We all want to become innovators ultimately at a certain moment of time in our lifetime, and he's trying to really figure out, is there certain scientific way of creating ideas and new thoughts and thinking differently? And what he really realizes, of course, there are patterns in which people think, and he was the first to really articulate and subject these patterns into some definition, which the TRIZ methodology really articulates. And if you look at TRIZ, it contains a lot of multiple tools like arrays, 40 principles, 76 inventive standards, and multiple other tools that talk about how to create some algorithm or a structured approach by which anybody can become an innovator. So this is unimaginable. This is so very powerful. Is you can have people in your organizations defining and understanding processes, questioning why processes are in a certain manner. Of course, it requires a lot of courage and a lot of support from the top leadership team, and we can have skills available with people so that they are making changes to the processes, to the offerings which are groundbreaking. So everybody becomes like an entrepreneur. Everybody is an innovator in their own sense. So it just contains all of this methodology. So essentially, what Altshuler did here was he studied a lot of these patents, and if you look at some 40,000 odd patents he studied, and he created some general principles, which he stated as the 40 principles as a beginning. Of course, they were later on refined to multiple other approaches, but the key 40 principles become the key focus area. So essentially, if you see, normally when we solve our problems, and even in ideation phase of design thinking, when we are trying to solve the problems, we are trying to use our traditional approach of brainstorming, lateral thinking, creativity, storyboarding, and people knowledge and coherence, getting multiple people together, and we keep on interjecting in multiple vectors coming to the solution. Of course, we have the solution at the end, not that we don't get beautiful solutions, we do get, but it's a lengthy process. If we have to really accelerate this process and create general ideas, the approach is to translate our specific problem into a TRIZ general problem as an approach, and there are methodologies to do that. Look at solutions at a general approach using principles of Altshuler, and life is made very easy for us because you have something like a standard, and if you understand the standard and able to interpret the standard in his own ethos, we can create solutions from those and then articulate those principles, solutions, and features and concepts into something that is practical. So this accelerates the journey. One, accelerates the journey, and the second is you are able to come up with ideas which are out of the box. So people keep on telling think out of the box. Now here is a methodology to actually think out of the box, rather than penalizing ourselves on becoming non-innovators or non-creative. So it becomes a structured approach of really articulating this. You see, this is the overall approach that we would do in design thinking. When we integrate the TRIZ innovation part with the ideation element before prototyping, what you would get is you would be able to accelerate this journey faster. You'll be able to accelerate it. You'll get stronger solutions, and you'll get multiple solutions which are stronger, deployable, and then the prototyping becomes very, very close to the solution that you would be an ideal solution per se. So you come as close as possible to ideality. Any questions still here that you would want to check up here?
Yeah. So we have one question from John. He's saying that it's too much information to digest. Please share an example and how was the approach to the problem, area to focus, etc. This may help in understanding more on design thinking.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
And we have one question from Deepak.
Yeah.
He's saying that I think the right decision on design trade-off is most important consideration, which we generally miss. Kindly comment on this.
I'm sorry. This is second question.
So the second question is it begins as, I think right decision on design trade-off is most important consideration, which we generally miss. Kindly comment
True.
on this.
True. So essentially, so the first question, what we'll be doing for all of the participants is, along with the webinar link recording that we would have. And I agree that it may be too much for people to really assimilate quickly. We will also share some broad reading material that you can read through, and then if you have further questions, then we'll be very happy to really have a discussion around it and really articulate. So we'll be doing that with you. Hopefully that should really address. And subsequently, maybe if the need comes in, we may deal and have certain other sessions that will deal with very specific aspects also of design thinking in particular. Uh, Coming to the second question, if we see, yes, design per se, there is a lot of these trade-offs that are really done in design per se, like cost of design or simplicity or complexity of the process, people aspect, limiting factors of the tools element that comes in. So essentially, when you come to the ideation phase, that is where you are designing or creating a to be process or an object or customer journey maps to be. What you need to articulate is, many times there are these contradictions of cost, complexity, people, existing technology, trade-offs between multiple aspects of design. And of course, that's the element of prototyping also, to really articulate what are the pros and cons of different aspects to be really addressing. You will see TRIZ is very, very strong here, because it starts by looking at what is known as contradictions. It starts looking at, for everything to happen, there's a contradiction. For example, I can create a very elaborate process and a very simple process and redesign it using high-end technology. But then the contradiction is, who is going to spend money for it? Okay. I may think of an interface which is highly automated, but then I have my legacy systems which are already developed, and there can be no further modifications, or the modifications are too costly to be carried out. And how do we really create something like that? Now, design thinking and ideation, and then plugging it with innovation, really helps us to address these contradictions, which are those trade-offs in design. So in innovation trace, the whole attempt is to break this contradiction or the conflict. Is, how do we create systems, products, offerings which are simpler, which are simple to accept, and yet they are cheaper? How do we create processes which are faster with the existing systems which are already available? So it starts looking at, if you look at this particular slide in particular, it meshes up with what I'm really speaking. Because if you look at in TRIZ innovation, you are looking at multiple different tools that get used, and these are certain tools that get used, like a multi-screen diagram, and ideality, functional diagram, root conflict analysis. So if you look at these tools which are available here, there are two in particular that are very, very useful, and that's where the power of it resides to accelerate ideation in design thinking. One is contradiction thinking. This is, how do we really articulate a contradiction? Do we really formulate the contradiction? And how do we look at the design? And remember, for every solution that we have, the solution, anybody can create a solution. For example, I have a process where I want to onboard customers immediately. For example, just take an example here. There's the need for us to integrate our Aadhaar cards with our various accounts, and our various bank accounts and phone bills and PAN card and all of this multiple. It's creating a lot of agony. Now, somebody can think of solution. Why cannot we have an integrated system coming up? Because everything is available, and why do we require people to be doing it? But then, of course, there are contradictions that exist, because maybe the systems are not speaking to each other. Maybe there's a security problem. Maybe there are the cost element that comes in. Maybe there's an awareness issue. Now, how do we really address this? So TRIZ starts looking at, how do we build solutions which are practical, doable, addresses business need, and can be prototyped. Since it is so very close to the ideality and practicality, it is very easy to prototype also, and for people to accept also. So there is where exactly ideation really fits inside, right? Any other questions?
No, David, I think we're good to go. We can proceed.
Okay, okay. So I'll just briefly run you through a few of the TRIZ innovation techniques which are there. One is which is used very aggressively is to do what is known as systems thinking, or like a multi-screen diagram. For example, when we are creating the 2B scenarios or customer journey maps and 2B processes and trying to articulate, we should be able to view the future. So that is usually seen like a multi-screen diagram here. One example here is, how do we look at our IT infrastructure support, for example. So there is a past, present, and the future. And if you look at in the present system, you'll see a lot of this subsystem and super systems part. That means the surrounding elements which are really there. So for an IT infrastructure system, you will see analysts, remedy, escalation decks, ACDs, and others being there, with the super system in the surrounding being our servers, admin team, transportation team, and multiple other elements. And if you look at the future, which is already there, I would say in many of the cases, and we are actually here, so we have to go one step ahead, is where is IT infrastructure going? So it will be more of self-detection, self-healing systems. So if you observe, what will be the role of an analyst? So analyst would go in the super system. Analyst will be somebody who really programs systems or creates knowledge base and database, rather than just providing solutions or workarounds for people to have, because technology, artificial intelligence, and others will be taking care. So when we are designing our to be customer journey maps, trying to address the problem, it should be future looking. So here is a tool that like a multi-screen diagram that really focuses on how to envision the future. I'm just showing you some of the couple of slides quickly, so that you are able to interject what are the various tools, techniques that really exist for you to accelerate your ideation journey. And here is a simple example of what is a contradiction, how to really address the contradiction, and it's beautifully done using this statement of if then but. So a simple example here, if we say, and this exists in all of our problems. Say, for example, if we reinforce the car body to make it bullet and bomb proof, then the owner can feel safe while traveling, but the fuel efficiency is compromised. So you see, there is a pros and cons to every solution that we really have. So what is done in TRIZ ideation phase is to articulate various solution sets, contradictions that really exist, like a chain. Just a simple example here, if you look at a chain of interlinked contradictions, because once we understand the contradictions which are there behind a certain design of a system, or to the solution also that we are imagining, we address the contradiction and then create solutions which address the contradiction as a win-win situation. We want to have processes which are complex and yet cost effective. We want to have processes which give us high turnaround time and less of customer agony coming in. And sometimes they go loggerheads. So you'll see a lot of these chains, and this is an example of what is known as a RCA plus, root conflict analysis. To differentiate between our traditional approach of RCA, root cause analysis, this is known as the root conflict analysis, RCA plus approach, to identify strings of contradictions that really occur. So here is another example here. If, for example, this is an example of a software estimation accuracy, this thing kind of a problem. So, for example, if no assessment is done for the model, then the effort is very low, but the estimation model itself is wrong. So one of the reasons why estimation of effort is not done properly is because there is no review of the estimation model. And why there is no review? Because there is a less effort coming in. Therefore, just creating processes and methodologies and checklists saying that have you done the assessment will not work, because people will not do assessment unless there is less of effort. So how do we have assessment with less effort? That becomes a problem. Even today, we see in many areas people are expected to log efforts in multiple tools just for the sake of calculating productivity. Now people resist that to happen, because and they're very clear about it. Why do I need to do a work which is productive related, like building softwares or value adding, or rather than put this into some kind of a template or some kind of a score sheet? So then they are really worried about it, kind of, and therefore TRIZ really fits in into this. Of course, there is also what is known as resource thinking, and how do we articulate approaches on coming up with solutions. Very beautiful um, uh, framework wherein we start looking at, are there resources available with us in our surrounding by which we can generate solutions which are better, like systems thinking, mono be poly resources, time, space as a resource, information as a resource, which can be used to create newer ideas. And of course the one that we really mentioned, what I'm just showing you one of the slides here wherein we see, we spoke about the 40 principles of Altshuler. So what Altshuler really came up with is all of our contradictions that we have. And remember, when we come to the ideation phase of design thinking, we are trying to solve a problem, and we want to come to a new solution. And when we design the solution, there will be set of problem, because otherwise the solution was easy to deploy. So here is a matrix which talks about multiple probable contradictions that are existing around us, and therefore are there certain principles, methodologies by which we apply the methodologies and trying to solve this overall problem. And when we design it, the design should be such that it gives us a win-win situation, win-win scenario for us. So it enables us to do that. Various organizations for whom we have worked with TRIZ innovation, and they are applying TRIZ overall, globally also. They are applying TRIZ. Any questions before I go to the case studies, or a few of them? Any questions?
Yeah, so there's one question by Bhargav.
Yeah.
Bhargava, so the question is there a framework that we can use to adopt design thinking?
Yes, design thinking framework is available. I showed you the earlier slide. I'll just toggle to the slides which we mentioned. It's a 4-step process here, but it can is also articulated like a 7 or 8-step process in multiple other approaches. So you can have articulated as a framework like discover, define, develop, and deliver. They have multiple steps and multiple tools, sub tools, and multiple steps, which ultimately becomes like an algorithmic kind of an approach. If you follow that, then you would really come up with designs which are robust. So it's an approach, but there are of course variants of it. Like you may have a 7-step approach, like empathize, define, design, ideate, prototype, and then test, kind of. So we like a 7-8 step kind of an approach. Any
Um,
other?
yeah, we have one question from Shaheen. She had asked this one a little while back.
Sure.
The question is, so if we don't know Agile, Lean, Six Sigma, and other such stuff, can we still
Yes.
become good design thinkers? If we are technically challenged, is this still a good model for us?
But, absolutely, means there is no, I would say there is no pre-requirement for you to become design thinkers at any moment of time, because it is not dependent on your technological background, your past education, learning experiences, working experience, and similar is even true for that matter for TRIZ innovation as well as design thinking. So here we spoke about particularly of ideation TRIZ as part of design thinking, but for both TRIZ application as well as design thinking and integrating it, it is there is no prerequisite, I would say, or any kind of a handicap that you need to be of a certain background, or a certain experience set before you even enter into these kind of engagements.
We can continue forward.
Okay, okay, true. Because we are just a couple of slides away. Any other questions? Then we can take it, or we'll just I'll just take you through the.
There aren't any yet, but if there are,
No, okay,
I'll interject.
sure, sure, okay. So essentially, we looked at in our session today, and we are just nearing the closure. A couple of slides here. So we spoke about how TRIZ TRIZ ideation works with TRIZ ideation works seamlessly with the design thinking approach to create newer and better ideas. various tools like RCA plus, contradictions, resource thinking, contradiction metrics. So I would say the whole I think one of the key elements as a takeaway that you should have all have is science at today's level has even articulated to a piece, and we see this in technology in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning and others, but the element of even creativity and design to an aspect of becoming something like a step by step approach, which is well researched, has backgrounds in science, and can be articulated by each and every one of us to become better thinkers, I would say. Because in the tomorrow's world, as we know, a lot of our activities are all going to get focused towards becoming creative, creating structures and systems. All repeated tasks are going to get automated. Therefore, there is an urgent need for us to reskill ourselves into thinkers, people who are creative, able to solve problems in different ways, and able to design systems in the right manner, as what we know as enhancing user experience, and what we know as UX, and the digital experience that people have over systems. Of course, a couple of slides here talking about organizations like here is a SAP experience where they have trained their entire workforce for design thinking, and done various approaches so that it becomes like a culture within the organization, multiple team folks being trained. Even at QI, we have engagements where we not only train on design thinking, but also consult organizations and handle them through to the entire cycle of applying design thinking to solve problems, experiment, and bring a culture and I would say a core capability within the organization to design systems in the right way when you're creating, which are all future facing kind of elements. And here are a couple of another chemical organization for whom this work was done in terms of inculcating design thinking as part of their culture. Yeah, thank you and best wishes from me and from QA family and QGlue family. You can, as I told you, you can write up any questions that you have. You can write up to us anytime. You will get a link on the webinar recording also, and we'll share a couple of reading material also. We are also having workshops planned in Bangalore and Mumbai. In Bangalore on the 15th and 16th of February, and on Mumbai on 16th and 17th of March for, in particular, ideation phase and design thinking. So here we'll be looking at the approach that we just mentioned some time back in our webinar in depth in a 2-day session where we look at actual problems, experiment with approaches in creating ideas using TRIZ approach, and creating prototypes. So it starts off with ideation and defining the problem and moves to the prototyping phase, that entire element. Any questions, you
Okay.
can reach out
Yeah, so
to
we have
us.
one question again. This question is Triz tools seem to be proprietary. Just a second. Sorry, Triz tools seem to be proprietary information. Do we have access to those tools at Barclays?
Uh, TRIS tools per se are not proprietary. They are available in common space. For examples, the tools that we have, which are available so we have, so like for example, I'm trained for TRIS level 3, and trained and certified at TRIS level 3 as a practitioner and as advanced TRIS practitioner. So you'll see a lot of the tools that we daily spoke of are available in public space. There is no an IP over how you would really define a problem. So there is no specific IP as such that have. But of course, having said that, there are certain research and tables which have an IP and which are protected with the IP, and yeah, so that you may not have an access to. But what we are dealing with is something that is available in public space and well rehearsed and approach over a number of years.
We have one more question from Tarun. The
Yes.
question is Triz only is the Triz only approach for design thinking?
No, TRIZ is not the only approach for design thinking. Remember, design thinking itself is a wide approach, like I mentioned, of define and then design and then deliver kind of element, like a 4-stage phase. empathize, define, design, prototype, and others. So design thinking itself is a 4-step to a 7-step kind of an approach. TRIZ is a part that only focuses on ideation here. When we create newer ideas, how do we generate ideas? So TRIZ is one of the techniques on how to ideate. Having said that, ideation we know can be done through multiple other ways. For our example, brainstorming, mind mapping, co-creation. You can have role plays, scenario based kind of element for us to create newer ideas. And those also approaches really exist. But what differentiates TRIZ, remember, TRIZ is not a design thinking approach. End-to-end design thinking per se is a multiple approach, but TRIZ fits inside the ideation phase of design thinking. What differentiates TRIZ is it enables us to think innovatively in a very scientific manner rather than just doing brainstorming.
We have there's a question from Priya. She says, "What are the certificates available for TRIZ?"
Uh, TRIZ, we have certificates, independent certificates on TRIZ is what I think we are interjecting. So if you look at independent, QI certifies as TRIZ professionals also at base level. But at an international level, there are what are known as MATRIZ certifications, which are internationally acclaimed. But there are certification bodies all independent, like in Europe. We have couple of European Association of TRIZ who does certifications, and very well acclaimed certifications processes are also available. But globally known currently is Matris, but European TRIZ Association, some of the other associations also are there globally who give their independent certifications. There is no one certifying body globally currently for TRIZ.
We have a question from Tarun. How can
Yes.
service delivery benefit from design thinking?
Okay. So service delivery, if you look at service delivery, it is maybe we will have to take this little offline. Maybe I think because service delivery per se itself is a large kind of a space for us to really interject. So maybe I know I would recommend that we take this discussion slightly offline with this thing Tarun. Maybe we'll just maybe reach out maybe to Tarun. We'll just reach out to you Tarun in a maybe in a couple of days or tomorrow or today itself, and maybe just interject. But of course, to get a better understanding. But if you look at the journey where design thinking comes in, is as I mentioned earlier, is to redefine the problem, check whether the problem itself is right. For example, in service design, we are talking about increasing where is the value element, what does the customer really want, stakeholders really want, how do we really deliver this off. So these are the essential questions that get really answered in the design thinking approach.
We have another question from Prashant. The question is, will this always mean more time to deliver a project?
No, it does not. It does not. Because the element in design thinking is you are not trying to do a design thinking in each and every kind of an element. What we are trying to do is, for example, let me just give an example here in the software element. So we had a waterfall model, and we have this agile that is coming, and maybe something else will also emerge. Design thinking is talking about how do we create maybe another approach which sinks in with the organizational culture, that is not only waterfall and agile but something else that fits in. Is there a probability for us to design? If we understand what we really want to do for the client, then we as well as do that in a certain manner. So it helps you to even challenge the status quo of exactly what we are doing currently.
Um, I think we'll be taking one last question before
Sure.
we end the webinar. If there's anyone who has a question, I think there was one question that was asked by Abhijit, which was, "Are there any design thinking certifications available?"
Yeah. So again, design thinking certifications globally, I would say, are there is no single body as such who does the certification globally. But at QI, we do have programs which certify people as design thinking practitioners. Of course, just attending the session will not make you a design thinker, because you will have to practice this and there are design thinkers over a large number of years who have done. So just attending the session or doing one or two kind of elements like we do in Six Sigma or Lean will not suffice. It's more so spending lot many number of years to really articulate and get the essence of it. But as a beginner, there are certain boot camps of design thinking that we are doing, and which can certify you as being a practitioner for design thinker, having that base knowledge and application base.
Uh, okay, we'll take this last question.
Yeah.
This is by Jivdesh, and designers face a lot of difficulty to explain the importance to technical project managers who just want to follow agile methodology. How to
Right.
showcase them the importance of design and design thinking?
Right. I think the only way that you can convince people is by showing an ROI. That's the only way, because at the end of the day, be it design thinking, agile, waterfall, or any other kind of an approach, irrespective of which, I'm just talking about software, it could be in any other industry. For example, in life insurance there is actuary process. If you look at say a banking process, you have got all the customer onboarding and fund movement, and investor banking, you have got how do we really manage the funds, and how do we really operate, and how do we build. So if you look at multiple organizations, each organization has its own challenge per se. The only way that you will be able to get a change, and design thinking is all about a change in the way that we, in a critical evaluation and a change in what we do, that will only occur when there is a demonstrated ROI that really comes out of it. So in a sense, when you do a pilot, and therefore you see in design thinking, a lot of these pilots are being done to really articulate practicality of deployment. Is it really able to do? And how do I get the ROI? And then trying to build that up into a design kind of just to quote an example. So the only way to convince folks is to create an ROI, is to justify through a pilot, and that's how it will operate. The whole element is, and that's where design thinking really comes in, is over a period of time we have got a fear of failure. So any new trial that we want to do, people want to be dead sure that it's going to be successful. Now there is nothing on the earth that you can be 100% sure will always be successful. Even rockets fail. So to an extent we are becoming risk averse to a level where we have stopped being creative. Design thinking opens these shackles off for you, saying that, boss, we need to try. If it works, fine. If it does not, we will try something else. But we need to come to an element on trying to question what we really do and trying to bring up. But in this journey, you will always have to have an ROI. Just to quote an example here, one of the famous examples, and you would have read this also over a period of time, is Airbnb also is one of the very strong proponents and users of design thinking. Now, how do they use design thinking? If you look at Airbnb, and that's one of the talks that is available on YouTube also, you'll see the founder saying that for in their organization, every new joinee, irrespective of the level, in the first week has to go in the field, has to look at a website, do whatever they want, but just be in touch with various stakeholders and understand what is the customer and various users trying to do. And whatever that you can come up with as an idea, we will deploy. So one person and a new joinee at a very junior level was doing this exercise, and he realized that on the website, wherever they take a lot of feedback from the customers who stayed at the properties and others. They are saying that, boss, there were these stars which were given, and that's what we normally see in various travel apps like Ola, Uber, and those. You get the stars that are coming. This he is questioning that the idea that he had in his mind is, why do we ask people to put stars when we are asking them about an emotional experience? Why is there a star? Why there cannot be hearts inside? So can I substitute a star with an heart? Will that make a difference? So he came up with this idea. And like in design thinking, no idea is immediately cancelled, and any idea that comes, we try and do that. We try and experiment, and they prototyped it. They said, let us try for a day. So on the website they made a change saying that, okay, we will not show a star, we will show hearts. The immediate impact was that their feedbacks that they got in terms of quantity feedback returns that they got increased by around 20%, immediate, in one day. This is successful. There is an ROI. There's a benefit that we get. We were trying so hard to get more benefits, and here is a simple thing that really changes it, and that is really encouraged. So if you look at in design thinking, unless we are able to demonstrate with prototypes certain value, people will never accept it. People will always be critical because people don't want to have change. That's a given fact. We ourselves don't want to have change. We want to be ultimately sure that everything is working fine, but that actually does not work unless we try. How do we know? Great.
I
Any other
think
questions?
I think that was the last question. We can
Okay.
proceed with concluding the webinar.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for spending your time on the webinar. Hope the webinar was useful, and do join us for any queries, questions that you have. Please write up. We'll be sharing the link with you on the recording. Some reading material also for you to browse, and any other questions, please do ask. There are design thinking, ideation phase sessions which are planned in Bangalore and Mumbai. Please do join in. If any further queries, we'll be very happy to. And thanks for all your time and best wishes to you from us.